Have you ever had a money or career question you really wanted to ask, but didn't know who to go to or just felt uncomfortable even bringing it up? You're not alone. Talking about money can feel intimidating, even scary. And that's exactly what I'm trying to change. That's why I created a free virtual coffee chat, a casual, no pressure 20-minute conversation where you can bring one thing you're wrestling with and we'll talk it through. No judgment, no jargon, no sales pitch, just clarity, ease, and a real answer from someone who gets it. If you've got something on your mind, don't sit in the confusion. Book a spot at limitfreelife.com and let's sip and sort it out. Hey there, and welcome to Money and You. I'm Michelle Perkins, your host. My search for more fulfilling work led me to career and business coaching, where I stumbled upon a game-changing discovery. Money issues often start with our mindset and habits. You see, our relationship with money is the key to overcoming those frustrating financial obstacles. As an entrepreneur, coach, and problem solver, I'm passionate about helping you create a great relationship with money. Because, turns out, that's the foundation for a limit-free life. Each week on Money and You, I speak with amazing guests about all things money, mindset, practical tips, and everything in between. We're here to give you new insights, education, and empowerment so money can be one of your favorite relationships. So join us for some lively conversations and let's transform your financial life together. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Money and You Show. I'm your host, Michelle Perkins, founder of limitfreelife.com. And I have a great guest today. We've been having some great conversations around retirement. And today we have a guest who wrote a book called Fearless Finance, which I love because that's exactly how people should approach it, but don't know how. And so our guest, Laura, today is going to really talk to us about the ups and downs of life and retirement and how we can integrate real life with retirement and do it fearlessly. So she's a wealth of information, and she is going to share some really interesting things with us today. So, this is really for people who are maybe even approaching retirement, kind of the 40, 50-year-olds who have actually, they're successful in their lives. They've been doing a lot of things toward this goal, but they're still uncertain. And yet they feel that, I should know more. It's almost embarrassing to talk about it at this point. And that goes for pretty much, the wide gamut of financial topics. People feel that way. But, it's unnerving when you're doing the things to plan for retirement and yet you kind of don't know if it's going the way it should. Things come up in life. You don't know how to handle them. But you're also kind of afraid to talk about it with experts. So today we're going to have a really great conversation about this and hopefully answer some of your own questions. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce today's guest. And Laura, I'm going to apologize in advance. Even though you just told me how to pronounce your name, I may forget. It's Laura Rehbein. We'll come back and have Laura actually say it for us. So what if the biggest risk to your financial future wasn't the market, but was uncertainty? Today's guest, Laura Rehbein, is the founder of Impavid Wealth Advisors, a franchise of American Financial. And with 30 plus years of experience, Laura helps professionals and retirees turn financial confusion into clarity. She's also the author of Fearless Finance, a practical guide to retiring with confidence. If you've ever asked, do I have enough? This conversation will give you the tools and reassurance you didn't know you needed. Laura, welcome.
Thank you.
Sometimes
Thank
it's hard to believe that you are so welcome, and I'm sorry about your name. You just told me how to pronounce it, and boom, out of my brain. So tell us.
Nobody. If you heard me pronounce it, you wouldn't know how to spell it. If you see it in writing, you won't know how to say it. It's Laura Rehbein.
Rehbein. I said that to myself, and then I was like, no, I don't think that was right. Because then I was trying to do the Einstein thing, and it wasn't coming out right. So thank you.
It always happens.
I'll never forget it now. Okay. All right. Well, Laura, welcome. We had a great conversation on the phone a while ago, and why don't we just start with some of the things as a financial expert that you're seeing out there in the world that you want to talk about?
Oh, that list could be so great. However, let's start with this thought. think about everything we get bombarded with in the media, in mainstream media. Is the market up? Is the market down? What's the hot thing to invest in today? What should what should you buy to make a big profit? My argument is, what if the biggest risk to your financial future isn't the market, but uncertainty? And so people get afraid and unsure about their own financial situation because they're just bombarded with all this investment stuff. And don't get me wrong, investments are really important, but it's like one lane of the highway. You've got all these other lanes of the highway in terms of your financial future to look at and know what you're doing and having some clarity. And so my book, Fearless Finance, and by the way, Empavid Wealth Advisors, Empavid is a little known adjective in the English language that means fearless, hence Fearless Finance.
Love that.
But what I like to do is help clients get the clarity around their particular situation. And that changes over our life. If you think about it, think back when you graduated college or started your first job or just got married, a big deal might have been buying your first home. Fast forward 15 or 20 years, now you've got children to educate potentially. What if you have parents that are aging that need help? The numbers and the math changes, right? Mm-hmm. But we're still getting bombarded in the media with investment stuff. And we don't necessarily have the tools to look at the numbers piece and how to evaluate that as we go through stages in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. There is a big mix-up with people thinking that the market is kind of everything. We just watch the market and we figure it out, and we try to beat the market, and we try to, watch the market so we can make smart moves before other things happen. And it's so much more complex than that. And while if you walk into your local brokerage house, the TVs are all on, and it's reinforced out there that this is what matters. If you look at the financial, television shows, it makes you feel intimidated by, it's really hard to understand everything they're talking about so well. But B, it kind of like never mentions anything but that, so you're so right. And because my real love is talking about the psychology and emotional aspects of money and the behavioral aspects of money, that's all pretty much ignored, and so this uncertainty you're talking about, it is hugely important in every area of finance, in my opinion. I even see it, I see it everywhere. I see it with business owners. I see it in the job transition clients I have. And so uncertainty does a lot of things to people. I see it paralyzing people. People don't want to make a move because uncertainty has them kind of frozen. What do you see uncertainty? How does it impact people you see?
I find that the uncertainty people have around their situation is typically what draws them into my office. Mm-hmm. And come into my office, you will not see TVs running with the market and the ticker tape and all. None of that. I have books in my lobby on dog photos and cat photos and fun stuff like that. Why? I don't need you stressed out when you're coming in, and then all of a sudden you come from a position of stress and you're just, all your nerves are on heightened senses at that point. But I do see people coming in and they are uncertain about their situation. What I try to do working with clients is help create some clarity around their situation and empower them around their situation. So when I talk about fearless, I don't necessarily mean somebody taking reckless choices and reckless decisions with their behavior. I'm talking about knowledge and gaining the knowledge of what you should do for your situation. Because I tell you, if you're saving, and I'm totally making this up, if you're saving $50 into the hottest thing ever, how do you know that's going to create all the money you need in retirement to support your lifestyle, and including all the things we forget about, inflation and taxes and healthcare, and you don't know. So it's more about getting the knowledge of what you need to have and why, and how that changes over life. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I love that, I think it's more important than ever that people just acknowledge that we can't really predict how your life is going to go. We can't predict how long your parents are going to live or how healthy they'll be or things about your kids, and all kinds of things happen. I did the thing that finance people say is like bad to do, which was I saved for my kids' education instead of my own retirement for a period where I had to make a choice. That was my decision. I was very conscious of it. And in the end, at least one child didn't even go to college. So, you make these decisions and you do things based on a limited understanding of what the future is going to bring.
And I have to say, you are far from being alone in terms of putting college education first before your own retirement. I see that a lot. And what I like to see people do is, if you're going to put college education first, great, but also know, what does that mean? How much catch up will you need to do for your own retirement when you get through that college gap? Or can you do a little bit of both? And sometimes clients completely neglect the retirement piece while they're working on the education piece. And you really want to know, how do you do all of it to some degree? And you just might wait more to college and not much to retirement until, the kid's becoming educated. But you're not alone in doing that.
Yeah.
By any stretch of the imagination.
Well, and it's interesting. In hindsight, of course, I would have done some things a little differently than that. And you're right about, what happens is so much of, money is habit. And so when you're in a habit, I never even noticed the college savings because it just automatically moved over and you forget about it and all of that good stuff. I could have easily been doing the same thing with some retirement money as well. But then you get out of the habit, and then for whatever reason, there's a big delay before you start doing these things. You think about them for a while first. That's the uncertainty. And then you're not quite sure, is now the time to get back into it? And then a year goes by. And so money's very interesting that way.
It is. And when people come in to meet with me, their starting point is just they're concerned. And the biggest question is, do I have enough? How do I know if I have enough? And what I find is that people are looking at the bottom line number and they're looking at their investments, but they're also not looking at the hidden risks to their financial future that we forget about. Shall we say healthcare? It's one thing everyone's talking about now because we don't know what's going to happen in the near future with cost of healthcare. But there's other things as well. Taxes. What tax bracket might you be in retirement compared to where you are today? Inflation, all those types of things. Long-term care. People hate to talk about that, but that's a reality. So when you're 80, 84, whatever, in your 80s, and you need to have some assistance with long-term care, how are you prepared for that? Preparing for that can give you the financial freedom for retirement. Not preparing for that could devastate you financially. So I bring up all those hidden things that we really don't want to look at, but ignoring them don't make them go away. It just makes you more vulnerable.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is the truth. It would be fun to ignore them. I mean, long-term care is the one that I probably ignore the most of any others. And I've seen it up close and personal, and it's real. It's something you shouldn't ignore. But I feel like part of the reason that it gets ignored is because the options feel limited. What do you do about it? You can get long-term care insurance possibly, or, I don't know. What do you tell people who are in their 40s or 50s and haven't really thought about it yet?
I find that my clients that are having parents that are dealing with long-term care, immediately their thought process is completely different. Like, how do I fix this for myself? Right. Is it affordable? Can I figure out something to do? Depending on your age, there's different things we might, I don't want to get into any recommendation or anything, but there's different things you can do at different ages to solve the issue and make it affordable for yourself. But people that are dealing with parents or other family members that have needed long-term care services, they get it. People that haven't dealt with it, it's more of that, maybe it'll happen someday, but, probably won't. It's not a thing I need to deal with. And it's harder for them to wrap their brain around it because it's a someday maybe not type of thing. And it's very much hard for them to wrap their brain around.
Yeah, I know that to be true. And it's tricky because you have no idea what you'll need, how much, if at all. So, as we talk, that's so much the challenge for financial advisors and planners out there. And the more people I talk to about these things, the more it seems like it's such a challenge to me when I have new respect actually for financial advisors and planners, because it's very hard. Obviously you have the ability to create a plan, But dealing with the person on a human level with all of this is crazy.
You were just hit right the nail on the head of what I was going to say, because as a financial advisor, I do have the software that I can run all the projections and look at what are the risks to you, what do your assets need to grow at, how much do you need to save, what are all the things that may happen, and I can map it out financially or numerically. But you have to marry that with the person. I've had individuals in the past that are in retirement and taking way too much risk, and they're staring at their investments every day. Is it up? Is it down? I mean, it's just crazy. And I've had other people that are so conservative where I'm like, you're not going to have what you think you have. And then I have people that have completely overlooked risks associated that they may face. I had a gentleman a few decades ago, a couple, different time, I think, than today in terms of long-term care and people's mindset. But I had a gentleman 20 years ago that was like, I don't want any of that stuff. I'm not going to do that, and refused to address the issue and just left the risk out. Fast forward, later in his life, he became bedbound. And so he was bedbound. His wife had dementia. They were both living at home. Their adult children are up north. And so they're trying to pay for round-the-clock care in their home for both of them. And I'm working them to figure out, create that exit strategy on the money to get to stretch the money as far as possible. They actually had to hire a nurse to fly him first class up north to get him closer to them. And he's just passed, but his whole situation could have been far different had they structured it differently. And you don't know until you're into it when you want to put the blinders on, so to speak.
Yeah. And when you're not in a great position to be making these decisions, actually.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. One of the risks that I do talk to clients about is the whole estate planning issue. And that's common for everyone to think about, right? Like, what do I do if I pass away? Do I need a will? Do I need a trust? What attorney should I go see? How do I find an attorney that I like? Those types of things. However, for my single clients and even couples, people don't think about who's in charge if you haven't passed, but you're not competent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a risk. If you pick the wrong person, it could be a mess. And people don't think about that either. If they're on that investment one-lane highway, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's so true. I mean, that is, and yeah, you really do have to think about these things in advance. And even when you do, things come up. I mean, my parents were a great example of people who I thought planned pretty well, and sent me things all the time. Every time the trust was updated, and I would get a copy, and I knew their attorney, and I had the basics of a lot of information on them, but when you're in it, a lot of things that you just overlook, you didn't think it'd be important to be on their bank accounts, for example, or, there's a lot of things that happen. And so it's very important to think these things through.
I feel like it can also be very important to have the conversation with your kids at some point.
Yeah.
I've seen the really good part of kids when the parents' time of need comes. I've seen the really bad part too. The gentleman that I was talking about that was bedbound and was moved north, those adult children did everything that they could for the parents. And they really were there. They didn't understand everything. They relied upon me, but they were there to get them through the rest of their life, so to speak. But I've had other times where I had another couple where their son was the one that was going to step in and take control, who's also up north. And this happens often where they say, oh yeah, my son can do it. My daughter can do it. Oh, they'll be fine, whatever. Until the son takes over and says, I know best, unwinds the entire retirement plan, cashes everything in, takes penalties, moves it, does whatever they want because they know better, and just decimated them financially. And they're not competent to understand what's going on at that point. Right. So I think having conversations with who you've put in charge is important.
Yeah, it's very important. I can't agree with you more. I've seen a lot of family devastation around this as well, and it's really it's really hard to watch. And yeah, so it's a great point. These conversations, and I really realized in doing this that all these conversations that felt like, oh, I don't want to have those, make my mom sad, I'll get sad. I mean, it was all this stuff. And when you're in the thick of it, you're not sad anymore. You're like in go mode, and you really regret not having these conversations. The emotion of it literally goes away when you have to deal with all the financial issues that are coming up.
You don't have time for emotion.
No, not at all.
Because you're running 150 miles an hour trying to take care of your life, and trying to take care of your parents' life. So it is a big deal. And having those conversations, I think, are very important. And I really do discuss that a lot with my single clients. Mm-hmm. What if you're still here, but you are not competent? Yeah. Who do you trust and who's going to step in? And that's a big deal. Because you don't want to pass away and have your assets not really go the way you want, or things get messed up a little bit. But if you're still here and you're relying upon somebody to care for you and pay your bills and make sure you're in the right spot, it could be a mess. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, every time I have this conversation with somebody, I think there's so much business opportunity out there, because there's a massive amount of people that are going to fall into these categories and really need help. And I always go back to like Golden Girls. I don't know if you even know what that show is, but I do. That was like a really good idea. We should have like formal Golden Girls homes out there or something. That's hilarious, because I've talked to several of my friends over the last 10 or 15 years. And I'm like, I'm going to create a Golden Girl scenario. Are you in with it? Because they don't have children either. I don't have children. And they're like, oh, that's the coolest idea. Yes, I'm in. Because you can do it. You set up the business structure and you have, call it a den mother or whoever is in charge to take care of you and get you to your doctor's appointment. You have a chef, whatever the case might be. But you can create your own Golden Girl scenario where a group of you can live together and have that.
And honestly, this is so off topic, but there's a little protection there, because if you're there with your friends and you bring caregivers or whoever in, you're not alone. People, are watching what's happening. So that's a huge thing.
And I feel that there's so many people aging, and there's going to be a stress on the system.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, there will be a need for all types of
scenarios
and settings.
I agree.
But so back when you said like where do we start? It's not the market that's always the uncertainty. It's the clients coming in saying, how do I know if I have enough? And so by having a lot of these conversations about measuring your money against a job it needs to do, looking at the risks. They're all the things that I wrote about in the book that can give you the concept so you can keep going back and saying, okay, what do my numbers look like now? How has it changed? What's changed with the sneaky risks, the inflation and taxes and long-term? Like, do I need to alter my plans or do I need to update anything? And so I really wrote the book to give the basic concepts to people that they can continue to go back and look at their situation. And it doesn't matter if they've saved $500,000 or if they've saved $5 million. The concepts are the same. The numbers just keep changing.
Yeah, thank you. And, let's talk about those numbers. So we talked a little bit about bad math when we talked before, which I loved that term. So can you talk a little about how that can get in the way of things? And what
I don't know where I came up with bad math over the years, but bad math. And someone will say something, I'll just go bad math. People are like, Laura, stop saying that. I don't mean that people can't do math. People I work with are highly intelligent people. They can do math. Sometimes they just want to avoid the math because they don't want to think about it. Yeah. Maybe they did put the college education first, and maybe retirement took such a backseat. Maybe during that time period, they got downsized from their job. So they're not in the same job. Yeah. I have friends of mine that my age that have become downsized from their jobs. They're still looking. So your trajectory changes over time. And then all of a sudden your situation has changed. And you're like, wow, I'm not making what I was. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to look because I feel like it's overwhelming. Yeah. Sometimes people do want to look, but they don't have the tools to run the projections. So they feel like, well, maybe I have enough, but I'm just not sure. I don't know how to run the numbers. I'm not the mathematical, brain. I don't have the software that I have. And so I can run the numbers for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, what do you see? I love that. And it's so important, I don't want to look at my numbers. This comes up a lot for me. I have a program that helps people build their relationship with money, understanding all of the underlying decision making that's going on. And then also just sort of basic personal finance so that they can get to a solid point where they can invest with somebody like you. But a lot of people are in debt, or they're not saving, or they don't have an emergency fund, or they don't know how to budget, and things are just really wonky. So it's sort of premature for them to even get on this path. But what I see so often is I would look at my numbers more, but it depresses me when I look at my numbers, or, just all kinds of comments. And it's to your point, not wanting to look at your numbers.
It can be depressing for people that are not in the position that they would like to be in.
Yes.
However, to me, if you don't avoid the math and you look at the math, you can make kind of like big changes over time by making small shifts.
Okay.
And so you don't know what those small shifts could be unless you do the math, right? Yeah. So if you're thinking specifically about retirement, if you do the math and you're like, oh, you don't have enough to retire, well, take more risk, work a little longer, get a part-time job in retirement, spend a little less, do a combination. But unless you know what your options are, how do you make a decision? You just continue to go along and avoid looking at the math just because you get depressed. So I understand that it can be challenging, but I feel that when clients have the information and the numbers, and even if there's small changes they can make, they can feel more empowered and maybe not so depressed.
I agree with you. And I think when it comes to money, we're big on learning the practical stuff. We're not so big on building our own confidence, feeling empowered, taking steps so that we can actually see what happens. It's one thing to, read the textbook. It's another thing to test it out, especially with things like investments. People, my dad he didn't have a huge amount of money to play with, but he was a good investor. And he loved studying it. So then he would do a lot of practice investing, and not put real money in, just pretend, which I think is a great way to learn, actually.
And I find that when clients work with me, and same thing with other advisors, clients or advisors that do financial planning, that do true financial planning, you may be depressed when you first come in thinking I'm never going to retire. I don't have enough money, whatever. But part of what I do is the behavioral finance piece with people. So I'm trying to understand where they're coming from. Why are they feeling the way they do? Why do they feel it's overwhelming and they're never going to accomplish their goal? And then sometimes people can do the math, but they can't do the math as detailed as I do. And I can help reassure them of where they can be in the future with some of the small changes that they could make.
I love that you bring up small changes. I had a money mindset coach years and years ago who would always say, small hinges swing big doors. And I mean, it's so true. And I love the idea because we can take small steps. We can do small things. That's, we really can't argue against that. We can go ahead and try things. And that's huge because especially in the financial world, small things make a difference. And we don't see it because we think the numbers need to be big, and they don't always need to be big. They need to be whatever they can be, basically, but they need to be. They need to be in existence versus just waiting until we're making more or waiting until whatever.
Think about it. If you did the math yourself or had somebody like me do the math, a 0.5 percentage point different in the rate of return you might earn on your longer term stuff, little bit, but over the course of 20 years, that's a lot. A little bit of tax savings every year. Maybe it's a little bit, but over the course of years, it adds up to a lot.
Yeah.
If you manage risk in your investments and have less volatility, it adds up to a lot. So a lot of small things can end up over the course of a few decades adding up to be huge.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, which is talking to you early on and learning these things early is, of course, going to buy you more opportunity for the small things to make a big difference. The later people come to you, clearly things, that complicates it.
It's both. I've had people that come to me that have millions of dollars accumulated for their retirement. And you know what? They've worked and they've worked and they've worked and they've worked either as an employee for a corporation or they've built their own business, and they're so busy working and building and working and building that they never had a time to sit and look at, where am I?
Yeah.
I recently had an executive that retired, and that person didn't fully understand the concept of taking a distribution from the retirement plan on taxation. And I thought, wow, he's very successful. It's because he never needed to look at it. It wasn't his thing. It was he was working and working and working and building and taking care of the family. And it was never something he had to learn. So why would he know?
Right.
And so I find that younger individuals can actually use the topics in my book to get started, because obviously I can't work with everybody. And part of the reason I wrote the book is just to put the information out there in the universe. So hopefully it can help some people that need it and can't get to me, but also for everyone to go back and continue to look at the concepts compared to where they are right now.
Yeah, thank you. It's so important to pay attention and to stop your busy life now and then. I think to have a regular routine about it, but to learn and to know what they actually. Until I was taking care of my parents, I really didn't understand the RMD thing either. So maybe you can just, I don't even know if we've ever talked about it on the show, just a real quick little, what is it?
Yeah. Why would you, if you're not there yet? Yeah. It may not be a topic you've ever read about or ever, you may have heard the concept, but why would you look into it? Because you're not there. Mm-hmm. An RMD, required minimum distribution, is what it's called. When you have money in a retirement plan, in an IRA, when you reach age 73, the government requires you to take a minimum out. So you might be in retirement and you don't need any of that money to spend because you have other sources of income. But the government makes you take a certain dollar amount. Why? They want their tax money. You've had tax deferral all these years. They now come calling and they want their tax money. So you have to take a distribution. Same thing with inherited IRAs. The rules are a little bit different. They're a little more complicated. We won't get into that. But if you inherit an IRA from your spouse, or if you inherit an IRA from a parent or a sibling or somebody else, a non-spouse, the rules are a little bit different. And you have to understand those and have somebody to talk to know what to do.
Yeah. And that was pretty surprising to me, the tax part of it all. So
things become so complicated because if you think about your situation or pick anybody, things can be so complicated between having enough money to cover your current lifestyle, saving for the future, following tax law changes. What did inflation do? Is inflation up? Is inflation down? What are my healthcare? Like, there's so much changing all the time. There's no way for the average person to keep track of all of this.
Right. There's not. It's like many things. I mean, we're okay with not being experts in, how to repair our car. We just take it to the mechanic and we don't think about it. But for some reason,
Mm-hmm. Yep. For some reason, it is put in our brains that we should be experts in our finances. And that's not true. It's just way too complicated.
Yeah. And so what we do need is a good team, though. I mean, if you have nobody to talk to about these things, you tend to pick up information from odd places, and that's not so great.
You need a very good team. You need a good financial advisor. You need a good CPA, and you need a good estate planning attorney.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's ideal if they can all be talking to one another, which I don't think I see very often either. You have to kind of force that one.
Mm-hmm. And for my clients, I typically try to play quarterback between the CPA and the attorney, because you're right, they don't normally interact that much, but I can kind of reach out, because your CPA should not be giving investment advice. I should not be giving tax advice or legal advice, and the attorney can't give investment or tax advice.
And so there's so many, and you can see already the crossover with the tax the taxes and the investments. And so, planning strategically, your tax accountant is all about saving taxes, but that may not work with your plan for their investments, what he's suggesting or she.
Or there might be something I want to do and I need to talk to the CPA to say, hey, can I do X, Y, Z? How will it impact their taxes? Do you say yay or nay?
Yeah. And as the client, you think that everybody's seeing the same picture. They're not. I mean, your tax person is really focused on that aspect of your financial life, and you're really focused on the investments that person has. And you're neither one is really getting a complete picture of somebody's finances.
Correct. So, and then throw the legal end in there, throw the attorney end in there.
Yeah.
And But I see so many people that just don't always have the clarity about their situation. And we haven't even talked about business owners. I mean, I see so many business owners that are wildly successful and have great teams around them. And then I see business owners that really started a business because they didn't want to work for somebody else. So they just created a job. They didn't create a business. And so they don't know the math that they need to do in their business to be successful, let alone what the business need to do to cover the business and cover the personal. So it gets even more complicated. So the whole scenario is just complicated for people to understand and get help.
Yeah. And once you get help, that's when it uncomplicates. That's when you start to, again, education in this area is empowerment. Once you understand things, I mean, I see both. I see people who really understand what's going on. I see people who have no clue, and it's much more stressful for the second group.
And if you have a trusted advisor, I have a client that just reached out to my office recently, and one of her parents passed, unfortunately. And the surviving parent is nervous, doesn't know quite what to do. And my client said, I'm sending you all the financial statements, help us. And so the first step for me would be to talk to my client and the parent to find out what are they trying to do? Why are they nervous? What are they scared about? And then figure out where to go from here. But the fact that my client has me, where she's watching her surviving parent be stressed out, she instantly knew to pick up the phone and call me and say, I'm giving you everything, help us. We don't know. We need to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and I also see a lot of advisors, and you're more than a finance person. I mean, you really do become, a mentor for people, and on many fronts, the human side, the emotional side, the understanding of the bigger picture for financial advisors, and then the knowing the person as well and being able to deal with them on a personal level is really invaluable. I don't think people understand how much it changes things.
And I don't necessarily know all advisors necessarily work the way I necessarily agree. Mm-hmm. However, when I work with clients, it's more of sitting down and listening to the numbers and looking at the numbers, but listening to them so I can hear what they're saying to me and kind of ferret out what their concerns are. Because if you have a married couple, it doesn't mean they agree on everything.
Right.
So you might have one that wants to save as much as they can save, and you might have the other one out shopping every weekend or doing something else that defeats the financial goals, right? About a year ago, I was meeting with a client and reviewing their financial plan. We were looking at their estate documents to see should they go talk to their attorney and ask if it needs to be updated, if there were any changes. And so we started talking about everything. And I looked at the couple and I said, you do know if something happened to both of you, how much money your children are going to inherit? And they're like, yeah, it's going to be a lot. I'm like, is so-and-so still married to their spouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. If that child inherits all that money, that spouse is a major spender. So that spouse is going to put undue pressure on your child to buy the fancy car, buy the new house, go on vacations. And that child is going to struggle financially because the spouse is going to go put pressure. Let alone if they're divorced and they've commingled money. or they go through divorce and they have commingled money. That couple of mine ran straight to the attorney. Within a week, they had it updated. Because they hadn't thought about, my children are good with money, but there's a spouse that's terrible. And that spouse will create that undue influence. And you can put some guardrails in the estate documents that puts less pressure on that child.
Yeah.
People don't think about those things. So those are the things I'm looking for when I'm talking to clients of like, what are we not seeing or looking at here?
Yeah. And you bring up a great point, which is, if you are looking regularly at your money and meeting with your planner regularly, it's like peeling the layers of the onion, because first it's about and it could be just about some very basic things, but as you get those down, then you can start looking at other aspects of this. And that's what I find with people who do spend, they take the time to pay attention to their money. They get to a point where they're redoing their budgets. They get to a point where they're re-looking at their insurances. But if you're just sort of in emergency mode where paying bills is like your main money interaction, you don't get there. So, yeah, it's a process. It's like the other things that we do in our life, but for some reason we don't do it with money. We pay attention to how we eat, etc. And
sometimes, like the changes that happen in our lives, we choose it. I've had clients where they've lost their husband, their wife, and one person ended up got remarried to a spouse that was 10 years younger. Well, the numbers just changed in terms of your plan because now your spouse is 10 years younger. Yeah. I've had people that were completely set and had all the bases covered in building their financial future, and then something happened, aka Hurricane Helene last year wiped a lot of our homes out down here.
Wow.
And, there are a lot of people that didn't have enough insurance, and it wasn't that they didn't have enough. There's a cap on how much you can get when it comes to flood. So there were a lot of people with expensive homes that their financial situation is totally different today. And it wasn't anything that they could plan for, but now they have to live through it and change their numbers and change what they're doing. So it could be changes in our life, could be things that we pick, and could be things that just get thrown at us.
Absolutely. And that's really what the uncertainty that you were talking about at the very beginning. So regardless of what the markets are doing, your own life is having its own ups and downs, regardless of market changes. So,
and that's really why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
Because it's just to give somebody a roadmap of what do I keep going back and relooking at as my life changes.
Yeah, and that's great. So I'd really love for people to buy your book, actually. So Fearless Finance, and obviously you can get it at bookstores and things, but...
Well, let me tell you that. So you actually cannot buy the book. I didn't write it to sell it because I'm in the financial industry, so we have wonky rules sometimes. Because I use it in my business, it's not for sale. I will give it to anybody who requests a copy.
Oh, wow.
So in order to, and that's just my thing, karma out, karma back. So if I give the book to enough people, hopefully it will help a lot of people get clarity around their situation. And then there will be those people that reach out to me that need help beyond reading the book. But if you send an email to our office email, Empavid Wealth Advisors at ampf.com, which I know you'll put on your information after this.
Yes.
And just say, hey, I would like a copy of the book. Give me your name and address, and we'll send you a copy. But yes, it is not for sale because I never intended it to be that way.
Well, I love that. So people can just reach out and get the book, which is great.
Yes. Just reach out and get the book.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. And you just reconfirmed to me how the guests that come on are just so lovely. And most of you are really wanting to sincerely help people in this financial world.
People get enough bombardment about investment stuff. I think they need a little bombardment on financial planning and how to figure out your math so you have smart math rather than bad math.
That's great. Yeah, that's wonderful. So thank you so much. And yeah, the whole investment world is available to you, but there are a lot of things to know before,
Mhm.
you tackle that one, I think. So
Great.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom and for that wonderful book offer. So that's great.
You are quite welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, can you tell people as well how to reach out to you? Can you work with people everywhere? What's your situation?
I can work with people in most of the United States. Just depends on where I'm licensed, and I can always get a license. So, domestically, the United States. And to reach me, you can also send an email to the Empavid Wealth Advisors at ampf.com, or you just simply call my office, which is 813-319-0011. Or if you'd like to fly to Tampa, Florida, you can see me in person in non-hurricane season.
Yeah. Well, Laura, thank you so much. I think this was great. A lot of information. And I hope through shows like this that people are just getting more comfortable, just feeling like they can talk to people about these things. They shouldn't be ashamed of wherever they are in life or whatever they have set up already. I mean, that whole thing is ridiculous at this point, and I hope people are feeling that. And
Great.
I'm sure if they come to you, you're not going to make them feel anything about that, just only hoped. So, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for everything. And yes, I will be putting all the information in the show notes so people can find you and find the book.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Have a great day. And audience, thank you so much for watching and listening to the Money and You show. You can find us on all the podcast platforms. You can find us on the Limit Free Life YouTube channel. And I would love it if you would share the show. So when you listen to a show like this one and you think, ooh, I know somebody who could use this information, please share the show. Please get people to subscribe, give us a rate and a review if you want to, if you enjoyed the show. We would love that. That just helps us to bring on more great guests like Laura. So thank you. And Pod Experience, the new name. Thank you for producing the show, Tony, and your new Pod Experience. Thank you so much. And yeah, we will see you next week.